Well, good evening, and welcome to our session where we're going to be talking about the group case study and persuasive speech and a couple of other things. These are important assignments, so I thought it best, although I'm not the hugest fan of Collaborate because both myself and students have had numerous issues with it in the past, I thought I would do this evening because I want to speak directly to you and let you know exactly what's expected so there's no doubt in your mind what you have to do as we move forward. I'm going to shut down my video. You'll hear my voice throughout. If you have a question, you can simply raise your hand. There's a little icon, and you click on that icon to raise your hand, and I'll know to stop and answer your question. Hopefully, I'll be pretty clear, and we won't have too many problems tonight. All right. So without any further ado, let's get started. I want to first talk about the group case study. Now, as you know, and you've read the instructions for the assignment in Blackboard, this is one of the more challenging components of this online class. In the traditional on-campus course, there would be group activities that would be done over the course of the semester, culminating in some type of activity, presentation, project, something. But it's different online, and especially in the summer in a compressed 10-week format. So I don't try to form groups online. But what I am asking you to do is to analyze a group that you are or were a part of. So this could be something in your community, something in your career, work experience, sports, a band, any group that had some type of formal structure, some type of leadership structure, and various people playing various roles. So any group you feel comfortable writing about is an acceptable group to write about. This will be written like any college-level essay or paper, so I'm looking for an intro, body, and conclusion. Quite frankly, if you were to use something akin to a written version of the informative speech format I presented to you, that would work very well. You know, some general statement about groups, the group you're going to talk about, explain what you're going to say about the group, and preview the main points. I'm going to talk about the roles, the reason the group was together, the various roles people played, task maintenance and individual roles, the types of leadership that were present in the group, and finally conflict and how it was managed in our group. So let's start with, and this is a written version, following that format. Doing it this way is going to serve you well because it makes things easier to read, and the average professor is going to look for these things to be in everything you write. The assumption is you know this. So I'm just making it explicit. Make sure you have this structure, and it'll make for a much better paper and a much better read. The goal of this paper, this case study, is to demonstrate your understanding of group dynamics, specifically roles. And what I mean is, as the book discusses, task roles and maintenance roles. And task roles could be information seeker or giver, or initiator, expediter, so forth and so on, as defined in the text. Maintenance roles involve roles that are specifically oriented towards maintaining emotional well-being and harmony in the group, such as a harmonizer, compromiser, an observer, so forth and so on. Use that language in your own words, or if you're going to quote from the book, use the proper form for citing it, and talk about the roles. Same thing applies to conflict and conflict management. The book discusses various types of conflict: primary conflict, tertiary conflict, procedural conflict. Talk about the type of conflict, why it happened, and how it was managed. Was it managed to be a collaboration or competition or compromise, accommodation? Using the appropriate language. Same applies to leadership. Democratic leadership, authoritarian leadership, laissez-faire leadership, type A, type B leaders, emerging leaders. Find the terminology and material in the text that matches your experience and connect them. That's all I'm asking. This is a 100 level class. So I just want to see that you're able to make these connections between what you're reading in the text about these things and your real life experience. So finally, again, just to reiterate, use appropriate scholarly language when defining the group, when describing roles. For example, if you're talking about a group you're involved with at work and someone was the supervisor and someone else was the assembler. That's not the language I'm looking for. Again, using the terminology from the book. This applies to leadership and conflict as well. So follow my lead, my suggestions, intro, body, conclusion, and use the scholarly language when discussing your group. If you've got a draft in place, you can go in and tweak it now, and you'll get these submitted. I'm sure everybody will do very well. That's all I have to say about that. That's all I want to say about that, because I really want to spend some time talking about persuasive speaking and this persuasive speech that you need to submit in 2 weeks. So it's pretty quick because, again, of our condensed format in this class. The starting point for your persuasive speech, as always, as with the first speech, is selecting your topic. With an informative speech, you can talk about just about anything. Your goal is simply to inform about something you know something about. With a persuasive speech, I'll ask you to think about something you know something about, know some information about, have experience with, etc. But add this other component. What do you care about? What are you passionate about? How can you help others? Whether it's encouraging people to quit smoking, to eat healthier, to start an exercise program, to manage their time more effectively, to be more successful at school and work, to take advantage of the Learning Center if a student is struggling, to donate blood, to volunteer for an organization in the community. What do you care about? What are you passionate about? How can you help others? Where can you go with this speech? So it's more than just a classroom activity, but it's an opportunity for you to share via communication a little bit about yourself, and for those who see the speech, get a handle on what's important to you. So something you know, something you have information about, something you're familiar with, but then add on, you care about it, you're passionate about it. In some way you can help others by sharing this message. And again, we'll try to keep it simple. As with the first speech, only 5 to 6 minutes long. That's your target. If it's anywhere between 5 and 6 minutes, you're right where you need to be. And the vast majority of speeches, the informative speeches, and first of all, let me say about them, they were outstanding just about across the board. There were a few needed some work. I'm not going to try to deceive anyone, but for the most part, they were outstanding. I'm looking at the list of names at the people who are here with me tonight, and these were all very good speeches. You all did very well. So keep doing what you're doing and use this foolproof format. It's different than the first speech. Let me repeat that. The format for this speech is different than the first speech. It's not intro, body, conclusion. The format is called Monroes Motivated Sequence, and there are 5 steps, as you can see here, to Monroes Motivated Sequence. This is all laid out in the book for you, and I'll briefly describe each one. Much like with the informative speech, you start with the attention step, and this is normally where people work to draw the audience in, create some information hunger about the topic, make people say, well, geez, I wonder where they're going with this. What is this really about? People do this by telling a story, a personal story, or a story that has been shared in the news and people are aware of. It could be a story about you, a friend, a family member, a classmate, a coworker, again, something you hear about the news or you find doing your research. So first you gain the audience's attention. Then part of this attention step will be announcing what your topic is and what you're going to discuss. You might talk about, say, I'll borrow one of the topics that was used for informative speeches, childhood obesity. Say you want to draw attention to this topic. You might tell a story about a particular child who's battling this problem and the issues it has caused in their life and how challenging it has been for them to turn the corner and make a change. So you tell this story and you say, today I want to talk to you a little bit about childhood obesity and what we need to do to help people who are falling into this trap. So the need is, what is the specific need or need to be addressed or problem to be solved? So with childhood obesity, there's a need and a problem. There's a need for people to realize this is a really serious issue. There's a need for people to further realize that it can be handled and it can be taken care of. And if not, it becomes a serious, even more serious problem, because we know that childhood obesity leads to adult obesity and all the health issues such as diabetes and heart disease and so forth and so on that go along with being grossly overweight in this problem. So there's a real need. So what should we do? That's when you can say something just like that. So what should we do? I have a suggestion, and this is when you're moving into the satisfaction step. This is how you feel the need is satisfied or the problem solved. So childhood obesity, you could say, we need more education about eating healthy and the value of exercise and physical activity. We also need to encourage people to make healthier food choices. Now, I realize many parents are busy, and it's easy to grab some fast food or so forth and so on. But it's just contributing to the problem. So we need to educate these people. We need to let them know that there are options available, and we need to get these children more active. So what will the future be like? What will things be like if my suggestion is taken? This is the visualization step. This is where you're providing a look into the future. This is where you say, well, if we do more education and explain that this is a really serious problem, that there are solutions, and the value of eating healthy and getting physical exercise at least 3 times a week, we'll see children become heavier. We'll see the children not be dealing with this problem as much. We will see people losing the weight they want to lose, and they'll be healthier. And as a healthier person, children tend to sleep better, do better in school, and so forth and so on. So there's a wide variety of benefits towards helping people recognize that this is a problem and then further helping them solve the problem. If we do nothing, and this is something else you can do during the visualization step, tell your audience what happens if you do nothing. And if we do nothing, it will continue to be a problem. These children will continue to grow into overweight adults and deal with all the problems, both emotional and physical, that come along with that, so forth and so on. So, what can you do to help? This is the action step. This is where you take this big, broad solution that you talked about here in the satisfaction step and focus it in and tell the audience what they can do about it. So you might say something like, if you or someone in your family is fighting obesity and fighting their weight, help them. Let them know there are things they can do. Let them know that eating healthy and physical exercise is the first step, and so forth and so on. If you yourself are dealing with this problem, start making healthier choices. Seek out help. There are support groups. Doctors can help you. The worst thing you can do is sit around and do nothing. So I encourage you to help people you know and help yourself if you need this support. Thank you. What questions do you have? This is basically the format of the speech. Tell a story. My solution, I'll just come right out and say it. Tell some type of story to draw the audience in. It's a great way to start. There are 2 sample speeches that I'm providing you with links to on YouTube. And that's exactly what both the speakers do. They start with a story, then start talking about some statistics and data. Then they explain the need or problem, their solution, what things will be like, and what action the audience can take. Your outline in Word document form can look just like what you see on screen now. Here where it says Monroes Motivated Sequence, you can say topic, goal, then attention, a couple of bullet points explaining what you're going to talk about in the attention step, need, a couple of bullet points explaining what you're going to talk about in the need step, satisfaction, bullet points, visualization, bullet points, action, bullet points. Remember, my goal for you is extemporaneous speaking, which means no script. So why do I say bullet points? Because what I want you to do is practice your message so it's natural and you're talking with us, not reading to us. And all you'll need is the outline with a couple of bullet points to remind you of what it is you want to talk about. So that's basically the format in a nutshell. So for topic, selecting the topic, step 1. Knowing the format and starting to think about your topic in the context of this format is step 2. Then knowing what else you can incorporate and the other things that impact the success, the relative success or impact of a persuasive speech. Now I sent everyone a copy of this PowerPoint presentation via email this morning. There are 2 examples I want you to check out online. The first is called Making a Difference Through Special Olympics. Excellent. Both are Monroes Motivated Sequence format. Both follow the format very well, and both will give you a very, very good idea of how you should go about organizing and planning your speech. So please, download this PowerPoint that I emailed you this morning and take a look at those speeches. What you're going to see is there's a variety of factors in play that make these speeches successful. First, we'll talk about the credibility of the speaker, which is also known as, AKA, ethos. And you may have heard this term before, maybe in high school, maybe you've taken some type of public speaking class. But ethos, the root word of ethics, refers to the credibility of the speaker. That would mean you. And that's how you are viewed by your audience. Now, this is kind of unique when you're doing this for a public speaking or communication course, because, and especially in an online format. I don't know that much about you. What I read in the discussion posts, perhaps the things you have shared with me via email, this is what I know about you. So I'm going into this with an assumption that you're a person who is ready and willing and able to speak on this topic, which means you have the competence to speak, and that you're a person who believes in what you're saying and cares about your audience. You're an ethical communicator, which talks about your character, the type of person you are. So I'm assuming you're competent, and I'm going in assuming you're a person of good character. Now, there are three types of credibility that we talk about when we are talking about public speaking. And they are initial, derived, and terminal. Your initial credibility is what I just discussed, how you're perceived at the beginning of the speech. And if you're doing the speech at work or perhaps in a traditional classroom and your classmate and teachers know something about you, your initial credibility is good. Your derived credibility is credibility you gain over the course of your speech or presentation. This is a combination of your competence, character, and it's also your command of the facts and information you're sharing and your ability to deliver it in a clear and professional manner. This leads to your terminal credibility, or how you are perceived by your audience at the end of your speech, when it terminates, or terminus, terminal credibility. So your goal is to grow your credibility from where you start to the end of the speech by virtue of selecting a topic of value, knowing your material, being well prepared, using your voice and modulating your voice and showing your passion and concern for the topic and audience by the way you speak. So keep in mind your credibility as you're preparing and getting ready for your speech. Now, there's some ways to enhance your credibility over the course of the speech. So this would increase the derived credibility, which then ultimately would increase the terminal credibility. Explain your competence. Explain why you know what you're talking about. So, for example, if you want to talk about steps to take to avoid diabetes, and there's a diabetic person in your family, you can explain that you have experience and know about this topic because you have a sister, brother, family member who's had to deal with diabetes and all the challenges that go along with that. So you can explain your competence. You can work to establish common ground. Say, for example, you were giving a speech to college students about the importance of encouraging them to take advantage of the services of the Learning Center if they're struggling in any way. You could say something like, we've all been there. I'm a student, you're a student. We've all had a time where we really didn't understand something in a class or just didn't feel comfortable with some material, right? You felt that way. And people probably nod their head and say, yeah, I sure have, because who hasn't felt that way? I was a college student once too, right? That's how I got to where I am today. That's how I got here to be the teacher of this class, to be a full-time member of the faculty at NCC. So I realized that students sometimes face challenges. There was stuff I had to do when I was in college that I found very challenging and had a hard time with. But I got the help I needed and I got there. So explain that common ground. And finally, through your fluency, expressiveness, and conviction, and this is about the language choices, the words you choose, formal, not informal, professional language, and the way you use your voice, or what we refer to when we spoke about nonverbal communication way back in the beginning of the semester. Paralanguage, the volume and tone of your voice. You can speak with great passion about something, and it comes through in your voice, and when it does, people react to that, and they respond to that in a very powerful way. You can use pauses for dramatic effects. It's all what you're comfortable with. I encourage you to, again, look at those sample speeches. Find other speeches online. You might even find speeches on a topic that is just like yours or very similar to your topic. So long as what you create is an original creation, there is no shame in looking around and using the resources available to you to make sure you're doing the best you can do, and you make the most of your 5 to 6 minutes and get a great grade and finish this class with a good final grade, some skills that you'll be able to use in classes and work and personal life in the future. That's what I really hope for you all. I want you to do well, and these are the things that will help you get there. Okay. Now you have ethos, which refers to credibility, and then the other two Aristotelian proofs, pathos, or emotion, and logos, or logic, are also an important part of your persuasive speech. Emotional appeals are emotional appeals to compassion. Think about these commercials on late at night, either for starving children or abused animals, and they appeal to your compassionate self, to your empathy, your ability to understand how others feel. These are the best places to go with your emotional appeals, compassion, and empathy. Fear of what may happen if someone does something or doesn't do something. You know, what can happen if you do start smoking, and what can happen if you already smoke and don't stop. You can tell people about lung disease, heart disease, early death, and all the horrible things that can happen. Be careful when appealing to fear, because it can be the type of appeal that puts people off. You stick with compassion and empathy, and I really, again, want you to watch those sample speeches. The links are in the email, the PowerPoint I sent you via email, and you will see in both these speeches, it's two young women. The appeals are based on compassion and empathy in both cases. Fear is not part of the equation. Go for that yourself. Logic is facts or numbers or types of reasoning that helps make your point clear or supports your position or suggestion or solution. So you have emotion, pathos, and logic, logos. My suggestion is try to seek a balance. And again, in the two speeches that I've provided for you as examples, and incidentally, they are the same speeches I use in my on-campus courses and show to students, and we talk about them in class. They're very good examples of Monroe's motivated sequence, and both contain a very nice blend of the emotional and logical appeals. So it doesn't lean too far one way or the other, because if you lean too far to the emotional side, people still want to see that there's logic behind your argument. And if you lean too much to the logical side, especially with certain topics, you won't touch people's emotions. And this is what, touching into and linking into a person's sense of compassion or empathy for others can be a very powerful and successful persuasive tool. Excuse me. Allow me to take a drink here a little bit, all right? Connected to these logical appeals is reasoning and the various types of reasoning you can employ in your speech. And it falls into different categories, different types of reasonings. You can reason from a specific instance. For example, a particular example. In the speech, one of the two speeches you will be watching is called Making a Difference Through Special Olympics. The young woman talks about the number of Special Olympians in Wisconsin, their need for one-on-one attention, and then the number of coaches. And the athletes outnumber the coaches 3 to 1. And the logic of that is, well, this is a specific example from here in Wisconsin. Wow, we need a lot more people to volunteer to be coaches if there's 10,000 athletes and only 3,500 coaches. So that's a particular example. Reasoning from a principle is something that's more generic, but there's a principle in play, such as making bad decisions leads to bad results. This could apply to choosing to smoke, choosing to eat unhealthy foods, choosing to lead a very sedentary life. The principle is making bad decisions leads to bad outcomes. And you apply this generic principle to your topic, your idea. There's causal reasoning, where you explain how one thing can cause another. This could, you talk about eating healthy or smoking again. Smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day can lead to heart disease. Well, medical science has shown us it can lead to heart disease and lung cancer and death. Be careful with the causal reasoning, because there's a flawed reasoning method called the slippery slope, where you make a statement about how one thing will most definitely lead to another when there's not a direct causal link. That's called a slippery slope. So be careful with this one. The analogy is a comparison between two things, how one thing seemingly unrelated is very similar to another. So you might say an analogy could be, say you want to encourage people to go to their doctors once a year for a physical, and that's the goal of your speech. And the reasoning analogy could be, if you spend $50,000 on a car, would you simply never change the oil or have it tuned up or have safety checks done? Well, absolutely not, right? That would cause problems for the car. It could cost you aggravation, heartache, and a lot of money down the road. Well, the same thing applies with not taking care of yourself, not visiting a doctor once a year, not checking on yourself. So that's an analogy where you compare two things, a car and the human body, but people can relate to it because they're like, yeah, geez, I had that one car when I was younger and I never changed the oil and the engine blew up and it cost me $3,000. It can cost you a lot more if you're talking about your health, and trust me, folks, I know of what I speak. I'm a man who wishes that 5 or 6 years ago I had made a decision to take better care of myself and check in on my health once in a while. I had an ongoing problem that meant untreated and resulted in 5 separate surgeries over the last 24 or 26 months. So these types of analogies would certainly work for me. Evidence is something else. Specific evidence is something you can use to support your message. If you're using evidence, make sure it's one, falls into a few specific categories. It's specific evidence that directly applies to your topic and your subject, or it's novel evidence, meaning it's information you've discovered that might not normally be readily known to your audience, or they might not normally consider it in the context of your subject matter. So make sure it's either specific or novel so that it appeals to your audience. And finally, make sure it's from credible sources. The internet makes it very easy to find information. The million-dollar question is, how good is that information? We all know what a good website looks like, don't we? I hope so. If you're talking about the benefits of a healthier diet and exercise, and you have data from the American Heart Association's website, that's good, credible source, and that's good, reliable data as a result. Also, make the point of your evidence clear. Don't provide evidence to your audience and not explain to them or make them wonder, have to guess why you're sharing this information. Because while they're thinking about why you're sharing the information and what the connection really is that they don't quite get, everything else you're saying is not being received. They might hear it, but they're not able to listen because they're concentrating and thinking about something else. So make the point of the evidence clear. You can even say, the reason why I say this is because, if it's not self-evident, tell them why it's important. Excuse me. Fallacies to avoid, these are types of reasoning or logic that are flawed. I want to point these 5 in particular out so you're aware of the problem with them. The first is called the red herring. Many, many years ago, I guess they've been outlawed now. They used to have fox hunts in England. They would bring out hounds, and men and women on horses would use the hounds to hunt and ultimately kill these foxes. Barbaric, so they don't do it anymore. In order to confuse the dogs and throw them off the track of the truth of where the foxes were, they would drag a fish around the area so the scent was everywhere. Hence the term red herring. It's a distraction. It's to throw you off the scent, as it were, of the truth. If someone is trying to persuade you of something and they have something to hide, or if there's something flawed with their argument, they may use a red herring to distract you away from that so you don't think about it. You don't want to do that. Politicians do it. You don't want to do it. Guess what else politicians do? They engage in ad hominem attacks, which in Latin ad hominem means against the man. And you don't want to do this. You do not want to engage in personal attacks. You do not need to use personal attacks to be a successful persuader. Actually, the most successful persuaders are the people who refrain from personal attacks and, as they say, stick to the facts and the information at hand and share it in a neutral, objective manner. There's the bandwagon approach. This is where you persuade people they should do something just because everybody else is doing it. I'm sure you've heard this in your group of friends at one point or another. There's something everyone's going to do. You might not think it's a good idea, and someone tries to persuade you to do it because Mark and Emily and Joanne and Frankie are all doing it, so you should do it too. No, that's not a good enough reason. This is the one where your parents would say back in the day, if Jimmy jumped off a bridge, would you? And you have to think about, well, would you? No, just because everybody's doing something doesn't mean it's a good idea. You know, a couple of years ago when everybody started texting while they were driving, definitely didn't make that a good idea. Then finally, there's the slippery slope, and I mentioned this a couple of slides ago. This is kind of like the flip side of causal reasoning. Causal reasoning shows that there's a cause-effect relationship between something. A phenomenon happens and something happens as a result, and there's a direct connection that is understood, and people, you know, experts would agree, yes, that's what caused that to happen. Slippery slope is where you try to suggest to your audience in some way that if one thing happens, something else will certainly follow, when there's no proof that that's the case. I think I skipped one, didn't I? I apologize. I skipped the either-or fallacy. Either-or is where you try to persuade your audience members they have to select, they have to choose between two options, when the truth is more than two options exist. You know that there's 5 options, but you make it appear there's only 2. You have to choose to do this or this. What's it going to be? That's deceptive. That's not ethical, and it's not fair. So again, the red herring is a distraction, ad hominem personal attacks, either-or, telling them there's 2 choices only when there's more. Bandwagon, doing it because everybody's doing it, and slippery slope. Well, if this happens, then certainly this will be the next thing. Politicians across the board use these. You should do it because everybody's doing it. It's unfortunate but true. So delivering the speech, different speech, same submission process, upload to the internet, send me a link, or send me a DVD. Everyone did the internet version with the exception of one person. That works best. And quite frankly, I'm going to turn my camera on again so I can show you something. This is my Samsung Galaxy S4 phone. And it has the ability to record video. And once the video is recorded, if I want to, I simply say share, click YouTube, click the submit button, and 20 or 30 minutes later, there it is on my YouTube account. It's very easy. So this is the way to go. The one thing I want to be totally clear on is I really don't want any what I call talking head speeches. You see what I'm doing right now? And I don't have an audience. Well, I have you. But this is not a traditional audience. So one of the kind of compromises we made years ago in our department when we decided we were going to go ahead and create an online electronic version of this class was regarding the delivery of speeches, and it's changed over the years. And let me adjust my camera a little bit here. That's better. Not too much better. It's changed over the years. At one point, we had students come to campus unless they were more than 50 miles from campus. Then sometimes we used this tool when it was called Illuminate Live, or had people come to campus, or had them record the speech. And a couple of years ago, I made the decision that in order to have a level playing field, meaning everybody was held to the same standard using the same process, I moved to this online submission process where you secure your own audience, record the speech, submit it to me, and it's worked very well. The problem with doing it this way is, so far tonight, everything's run fairly smooth, but frequently students have problems getting their cameras or microphones to work, or the internet will kick out. It becomes very stressful. By giving you the opportunity to record it and submit it, as I said before the first speech, you can record it 3 or 4 times and only submit the best one, because I believe practice makes better, and that really reinforces that notion. Secondly, you're taking online classes, and many people have mentioned they're taking multiple online classes. In other online classes, the move is toward this method of speech delivery, where you record, upload, and submit in that way. So you're ready to do it for the next class. You not only know how to do the speeches in the way, the Northampton way, as I'll call it, you're getting well trained in the technology involved. The technology you're going to be using for the rest of your life to share information, photos, videos, anything. The internet's the way to go. So again, different speech, same process. When are the speeches due? I've extended this, I think, by a day. I was originally saying Tuesday the 4th of August. We're going to go with Wednesday, August 5th by 11 p.m. I need to have the speech. And this time I can't offer extensions because with this being the 10-week summer session, it wraps up very quickly and we have to have our final grades in very quickly. This gives you 2 weeks, basically. In essence, you have just under 2 weeks. Again, a 5 to 6 minute speech. Look at those samples. You're not going to have any trouble. And again, good luck. If you did well in the first speech, there's no reason to believe you couldn't do as well or better on the next speech. Again, that's what I'm shooting for you. Finally, one last thing I want to talk about is the final exam. We now have what's called a common final, meaning all online and on-campus courses use a final exam with 27 common core questions. I'm going to try to adjust my camera right now. I don't like this anymore. That's a little better. So there are 27 multiple choice questions, okay? Set up just like the quizzes you've been taking. It'll all appear on one screen, okay? The difference will be because it's the final, you'll have one chance at it. There are also 5 short essay questions which are based on the student learning outcomes for the class. So there's a question about persuasion, specifically about how beliefs, values, and attitudes impact both the speaker and the audience. There's a question about informative speaking in general. The importance of learning about communication, the importance about nonverbal communication, basic stuff. This final exam is going to be available from August 9th at 12:01 a.m. to August 11th at 11:59 p.m. So you basically have a 48-hour window. This is as kind of dictated, as designed by the college. Excuse me. You'll have a 2-hour time limit to complete the final exam. Okay, so from the time you start it, you will have 2 hours to get the 27 multiple choice and the 5 short essay questions done. For the short essays, it's like a paragraph, and there will be a study guide that is going to be distributed via email on Monday, August 3rd. So you'll have that for the better part of a week before the exam. It shows you everything you need to focus on, everything you need to know from the course of the semester, because it's a comprehensive final, and some guidance as to things you should be thinking about, not the exact wording of, but the things you should be thinking about for those 5 short essay questions. Okay, so there I've gone over the 3 main things you have left to complete. I think you've got a quiz on persuasion, you have the persuasive speech and the outline, you have that group case study due coming up in the next 4 days or so, whatever it is. I think today's Thursday. And of course the final. And based on the work you've done this semester and the quality of the work and what I would describe as your dedication to the class and supporting one another throughout, I see no reason why you won't do very, very well. So I want to wrap it up by saying I want to wish you all, this is the last time we talk in real time, I want to wish you good luck in all you do, college, career, everything else. Success is out there waiting for you. You simply have to make the decision that you want to go out there and grab hold of your share of it. It's easy sometimes to take the path through to say, well, maybe not this time or maybe some other time. But I really want to let you know that, again, as a person, I'm speaking from personal experience. There were times earlier in my life where I missed out on opportunities because I wasn't willing to take a chance. I missed opportunities because I didn't think I was good enough or wasn't ready. Those decisions, while maybe I regret them a little bit, in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, I suppose I don't regret them at all, because everything we do, every choice we make, ultimately makes us the people that we are. But I do wish the best for all of you. I get a connection with my students, whether it's a 10-week or a 15-week class, and I read about you and the things you share in completing your assignments and things like. I call you temporary friends, and I want all my temporary friends to do well. I also want to point out that while our time together will end in early August, should you ever need some guidance or support when putting together a presentation or a speech, issues working with groups, or anything else related to the things we've been studying in this big thing we call human communication, my light's flashing. Oh no. I'm here for you. I'm as far away as an email. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be back on campus in the fall, and I'll be there for you even once our time together as teacher, coach, Yoda, and student is over. So that's all I have for you tonight. I'm glad that I think I've got 7 people here. Excellent. I'm glad you were able to make it, and I'm glad you were part of this class this summer. So at this point, if there are any questions, or a better way to say that, just follow my own lead. What questions do you have? Now's the time to ask, and I can answer them for you. Either turn on your microphone or video or whatever you like to ask your question, or you can type it in the text box. Well, perhaps I was as thorough as I've ever been, and you got it. Okay, folks, I'm going to shut down the recording now. Again, there will be a recording available of this if you want to go back and look at it again. Feel free to do so. Don't forget to download that PowerPoint I sent you and look at those speeches, Making a Difference Through Special Olympics and the Ultimate Gift, which is a speech about donating blood. They follow our format. They're excellent examples. Not perfect, but there's no such thing as a perfect speech. I just spoke to you for about 45 minutes, and I slipped up and flubbed a couple of times, but I'm okay with that because I'm human. We all are. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention and concern for your work this semester. And again, I wish you the best in all. Take care.